Okay, hopefully we're live. I haven't appeared on my iPad yet. Oh, there we are. Okay, so we're live here on this Saturday morning here in Brisbane, Australia. This is just the preamble. I see two of you are logged in already. Is one of them you, Greg? That's all right, I'll call you in a couple of minutes. 4 people now. Lovely to see you. The comments haven't started streaming in yet. Wasn't it a lovely surprise, well, for me to wake up this morning and find that Nick had recorded a video for us. Very nice. And contrary to the popular opinion that I never sleep, I was asleep, so I missed it. Hey, Jessie. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Jessie, are we going to be sister wives with Mark? Given that he asked both of us to marry him on the second last live stream. Yeah, I think it was on at about like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so I was never going to be awake for that. I think us international viewers, we need a little bit of notice. Probably would have been good for the Euros, but I don't do notifications. So, great show today. My friend Greg is back, and he will be imparting his knowledge of the instrument that he plays, the pipe organ. And I must admit that before I met Greg, I didn't know a lot about the pipe organ, apart from the fact that it accompanied the hymns at church when I went to church as a child, and I was not aware of its amazing musical capacity. So I'm hoping Greg is finished his breakfast, and I'll give him a call. Hey, Greg.
Hi, Kathy. Just caught me from the other room. I'll put my earpods in. Hold on.
Yep. It's all right. We haven't started the show yet.
No, that's right. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. All right. I need to get a pen. That's right. Sit down. Should have actually brought my tripod to hold the iPhone, but that's all right.
Okay, cool.
This looks a bit odd. I might actually duck out and get my tripod just to it's probably a better position.
Yeah.
I'm the picture in the frame.
So Jessie says, "Hi, Greg. Thanks for joining us again."
Hi, Jessie.
Are you logged into the live stream on your iPad?
Yes, I am. Although,
have you worked out live chat yet?
I'm in, but I don't know how continuous it's gonna stay. It's like I see a delay actually. It looks I've just
Yeah, there
wait.
is a delay. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
But as long as you're in the live chat, you should be able to type in stuff. Have you seen the live chat?
I've got a black section on that other side, so I don't know how to. I actually am not sure how to type in or anything, but I've got the YouTube link called up, so that's where I'm viewing it.
Yeah. Are you in the app?
I think so.
Because if you're in the app, you'll see live chat. If you click on that, a window
Is that
should
on
open.
settings or?
No, that's on the actual video.
Let me see. Okay, I'll enlarge that. Live broadcast. It's a bottom. That's all it says, but I haven't actually got the chat function. Maybe you are on a Mac. Oh,
No, I'm on my iPad in the app.
This is the app too.
Yeah.
That's I see myself and you in the corner. And just try to.
So you've got the description. Kathy introduces the mighty pipe organ. Can you see that? Just below the picture.
No, I'll show you what I see. This is all
you're
what I
on
see.
you're on full screen. Unfull screen it. Yeah, you're on full screen. So if you unfull screen it,
yeah.
Can you see live chat? Yeah, just
3, 4.
see you've got that. See you've got that up. See you've got the thumb up and thumb down.
Hold on.
See how you've got the thumbs up and thumb down?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got share, save, and report next to that.
You should have live chat.
Well, it doesn't look like that because that's all I've seen.
Oh no, you don't have it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's the app. So
that's
like
weird because you should have live chat. All right. Okay. I'll start the show.
Yeah.
And yeah. Maybe you have to refresh it. You might have to refresh it. But anyway.
Browser settings. No, that wouldn't be. I don't want to stuff it up. Playback settings.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's cool. Hello everyone. Sorry that I'm a little bit late. My name is Kathy Williams-Devries, and I'm from Brisbane, Australia, and I'm presenting a stream on the pipe organ with special guest star Greg Hartay-Szabo, who I will introduce in a second. Now, I've been aware of the pipe organ since childhood, but I was only ever aware of its use accompanying the hymns at church. It wasn't until I met Greg, a pipe organist himself, that I became aware of its amazing expressive and musical possibilities. So today I'm going to introduce you to a number of different pipe organs, because all pipe organs are different. They're made by different makers. They have different stops and characteristics and personalities. Oh, hey, fiance Mark. Which of us are you going to marry? Hey, me or Jessie? Sorry, Greg. That's a joke from the live chat.
Guess what? I
Hang
managed
on,
to
I'll
actually.
okay. So without further
yeah.
ado, hang on. I'll just put you on to Greg. Here we are.
Hi everyone. Hi again. Welcome to this. Something like live chat.
Oh, you've worked it out.
Pipe organs.
You've worked it out.
I think so.
Have you got the live chat scrolling?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And make sure it's live.
Make
sure it's live chat and not top chat. You might be into top
chat.
It
is. I think it is live. I think, as far as I can see.
Well, no, there's live chat and top chat.
Okay, let's check that.
That's all right. I'll let you figure that out.
That's right.
Anyway, so we've got a great program today. So you've helped me a great deal with the program. I've relied on your expertise. So we're going to start. Oh, you've frozen. So we're going to start.
Well, it's winter in Queensland. It's actually quite balmy. I think about 21, 22 degrees, so I think we'll survive.
Yeah. So you can see I'm actually in the. Can you see my coat? I got this off Wish. It's very nice.
Yeah. I think this is probably a horrifying sight to our American friends who are probably sweating in summer heat. Happy Independence Day, by the way.
Well, it's not Independence Day there yet.
Oh yeah, we'll be soon. Yeah,
it's
from our selfish time zone perspective, I think we can say that.
Yeah. So we're going to start the program. I'm actually going to play a few videos in a row. So we're actually going to start with the very largest pipe organ in the world, the Wanamaker. Is that right?
Yes. Kathy, how would you like to do this? Would you like a brief introduction, or just immerse them straight away in it and then just later explain afterwards? Or
give us a brief introduction. So this set will feature the Wanamaker, Albert Hall, the one in Hungary.
Yeah, it's a Palace of Arts.
And also
Saint-Sulpice in France, Notre Dame in France.
We'll talk about that, but if you want to give a brief introduction to the four organs that we are featuring first, which is the Wanamaker, the one in Hungary, Royal Albert Hall in London, and the Sydney Town Hall.
Yeah, look, probably the best start would be just to give a brief outline to the instrument itself. So complex as it may seem, and we are talking about the real giants here coming up on YouTube. So it's this is not like an organized TV or radio program. So it's a bit more like a smorgasbord going through a couple of these fantastic instruments. Might call it smorgasbord. But it will give you a great and hopefully impressive insight of what this instrument is capable of. Having said that, this is also one of the oldest instruments existing in the world. So how about that? One of the most complex instruments as it evolved through millennia and centuries in time, and also the oldest, because at least for Western civilization, we are aware of the first, what we might call an organ from the 3rd century BC. And from Alexandria, actually, was I think around 224 BC. And obviously that sort of started the development of the pipe organ as we know it today. And also the most complex, because as the time progressed, people wanted to add more to it. People wanted to combine more divisions or parts of the organ. And it has had quite a colorful history because it wasn't used at church to start with. If you think of Roman amphitheaters and entertainment purposes in courts, that's where the instrument became known for. However, because of its capabilities in church and church music, then it became the preferred instrument of the church. Why? Because it's very similar to human voice. It has bellows, while we have lungs. The air goes into the pipes, just as it goes from our lungs and then resonates our vocal cords and forms the sound. So when they started singing in cathedrals, they needed support. And what's the best support for a sustained note for singers? The pipe organ. Mm. And then soon it became the preferred instrument for keeping basically singers at bay, so to speak, so they don't go off track. And then once we are there, you have one voice, then why not add another one? And because we added another one, that also meant a new challenge for the instrument. And then so they added more voices, the keyboards developed, so instead of one keyboard, then became more keyboards. So we come to, say, the 15th century, and then we add the pedal board as well. And we combine the different parts that we've seen separately previously. And then basically that's when we can date back the pipe organ as a complex instrument. I probably have to explain manual first. So this is the keyboard that you play by hands, from the Latin manus word, whereas the pedals come from pedes, which is feet, played by the feet. So when we talk about a pipe organ today, we mean usually an instrument with at least a single keyboard, obviously, and hopefully a pedal board with it as well. Now, these giants that you're going to see are a bit of an excess of what we might define as such, because it was also a competition between different countries, different cities, different wealthy investors. This particular one, and we might say we start from home ground, from the United States, as many of you may tune in from the US, was built for a World Fair, the St. Louis World Fair in 1904. Then a gentleman called John Wanamaker in Philadelphia decided to get this organ for his department store. I think it was Philadelphia Emporium, and included this instrument. We're talking about 13 trucks worth of pipework to be transferred to this venue. And as you will see in the video, nearly 30,000 pipes, wow. 6 keyboards to be played by the hand, 6 manuals and a pedal board. And I think when we talk about ranks, I think 469 ranks. Oh, gosh. And distributed over 7 levels in the grand court of this hall. And I think now we can start the video, because this background history doesn't appear, but you will hear a little bit more in the video actually.
Yeah. And we're also featuring the organ in Royal Albert
Hall in Budapest. Yeah. So this particular one, so 1904, this other one was built in the Budapest Béla Bartók Concert Hall in 2006. So a century later. The hall itself won an acoustic award. I think it's among the top acoustic halls in the world now. So I think snapping the award from London, actually, as far as I recall, which is a big deal. And this has 5 keyboards, 5 manuals, 2 consoles. So one is actually playable away from the organ case itself, down where the orchestra is on the stage.
Yeah, on the stage. Yes. Yeah, because normally organists are kind of hidden up in the loft, aren't they? The original social distances.
Well, this partly is because there's one console which you will actually see on the video, which is the top one, right built into the organ case. And mechanically speaking, this is necessary because of the the oldest connection between the pipes and the keys is called a mechanical action, where through various stickers between the key and the pipe, which then open the valve to let the air in, that had to be a direct connection and a very close keyboard, very close console to the actual organ case. And later, when electricity and pneumatics sort of came on the scene, then they could take that console away from the main body, the main organ case, a bit further. So now there are concert halls when you can actually find these consoles down on stage near the orchestra or among the orchestra. So the organist can actually hear better how that instrument's up in the loft or up on the wall sounds, where everybody else would hear it as it is. Then we get to the Albert Hall one, which in London, which is a very precious, one of the most famous instruments as well. It's the venue of the last night of the Proms as well, and many very prominent concerts annually. And this is another Goliath for a pipe organ. They will each get an introduction. So this is one of the largest instruments at the time in the 19th century as well. And then we get the Sydney Town Hall, which is probably the furthest away you could get from, say, European organ building with the most prominent English, French, and German. Yet it's an organ, it's in its own right, 125 stops and I think around 9,000 pipes, built by a rival organ builder to the Albert Hall one. So these were the two big ones. We might talk about this a bit later as well. Henry Willis and William Hill, the two main English organ builder competitors, building around large pipe organs around the world. And the Sydney Town Hall organ, for a while, used to be the largest in the world as well. This is partly due to the wealth of these huge cities, some of them building on the wealth of either the timber or gold, as in the case of Melbourne. So there was this, even in our country where we both actually live stream from, Melbourne and Sydney remain two large rivals, and obviously they wanted to show off their wealth. And
Sydney and Melbourne are always at it, aren't they?
Yes, it's to show off their organs. No double entendre, please.
Okay. Well, let's.
So it's a bit of a civic pissing contest.
Yeah. Sorry, Patrick. Okay, so
civic pride, I should say.
Yeah, so I'll let you go, and you can hop into the live chat, and we'll play the first few tracks.
Look forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
I'll see you in a bit.
You're seeing the world's largest functioning musical instrument. Some 28,500 pipes are in this organ. The ones you see, interestingly enough, don't actually play. The facades of this very, very famous instrument are not speaking. They're just there for show. The pipes are behind the walls. Hi, I'm Peter Richard Conti. My title is Wanamaker Grand Court Organist at Macy's. And this console that you're seeing right now is just the control panel, much like a cockpit of a large aircraft. And these are the keyboards, much like piano keyboards. We have 6 of them because there's so many different voices to control. Each one of these keyboards controls a different family or a division of pipes, they're called. And then to my right and left of the keyboards are the actual stops, the voices. And there are 3 symphony orchestras worth of voices. We call the voices on an organ a rank. And this organ has 469 ranks, or players, if you will. Organists are part octopus, and the pedal board is the equivalent of the bass end of the orchestra, is played by the feet. Back when I first started here in my early part of my tenure, the organ was pretty much dead, if you can believe it. Most of it just didn't function. Macy's came in, and within just a few years, the organ went from hardly playable to now it's 100% playable.
The organ's turning on. The first thing that turned on was the DC power supply to give the power to the organ. You can see all the pilot lights lit. So that's putting out 13 volts for the instrument. And then the next thing that happens is that the 8 blowers throughout the building turn on slowly, one after the other, so we don't take too much current at once. And you can hear the organ coming to life. The air goes through a bellows, which is like a diaphragm regulator, and that controls the final pressure that goes inside the chest. There we go. And then you have a pneumatic under this note that opens and closes and allows the air to come in here when it's called for. So in many cases you have 3 pneumatics per note that have to be maintained and rebuilt. This is where the signals for the orchestral come upstairs and then are distributed into the chamber. This has reeds. You'll see there's all kinds of different shaped resonators for all the reeds in this chamber. You can see the shutters that let the sound out. You can see them opening and closing as he's playing.
Macy's gets the fact that this is an international icon, and it's a Philadelphia treasure as well. And Macy's understands that, and they have really poured their resources into it, and it's a wonderful thing. The organ is in the best shape of its life.
That turned out pretty well, actually, yeah.
I'm here in Budapest, Hungary at the Palace of the Arts and the organ of Bela Bartok Concert Hall, built in 2006. It's one of the biggest concert organs in Europe. 92 stops, 5 manuals, built jointly between Pex Organ Builders of Hungary and also Mühlhausen of Germany. They created this huge instrument for many, many different types of concert performers. I'm here to do a concerto this evening and set up the organ during rehearsal, but I thought I'd show you around it very quickly. Big instrument, as you can see, 5 keyboards. The bottom keyboard is the great Grand Org, fairly typical as you expect, based on 16 foot. Typical sort of principal chorus. There's a reed chorus too. The next manual is a positive, which is enclosed in a box again. With some very nice reeds on it. We have a bassoon and a trumpet. We also have some free reeds. We have a clarinet and a dulcian. All enclosed in a box. The next one is a resi swell, which is also enclosed in a box. Fairly standard. We have quiet strings, as you would expect. Flutes, and then building up through the full chorus. A nice big sound at the top of the organ. The fourth manual is a solo, which is also an enclosed with lots of big flute. It's all based on a 16-foot chorus, which builds. We also have this flute string as well, Italian style. There's the flute, and then the voce umana. Solo cor anglais. And then on the top manual is just for the chamades. It's an electronic manual. These 4 keyboards are mechanical. This one's electronic action, electric action. We have a chamade 8. 16 and a 4 foot. So together we have a really big sort of sound on the front of the organ. In addition, there's a couple of interesting features. We have a tuba mirabilis that's very associated with English organs. It has its own blower here, which has to go on. And once it's on, we can draw it, and it's on the solo. Quite a big sound right at the top of the organ. And then of course we have the pedal division all the way over here for the pedals on the floor, based on 2 big 32 foots. We go right through the mutations separately. And also the reeds. We have a softer 16-foot bassoon. Larger 16, 8, 4, and then down to 32. All the way down to there. You can couple them together mechanically or electronically. So I choose a combination. These are coupled electronically at the moment, which makes it easy to play. If I do the mechanical things, you'll see that the electric coupler goes in, and it's quite easy to hear that it's heavy, really weighty, so we use the electric ones instead for an easier coupling together. We also have an interesting feature which is quite common on a lot of concert organs nowadays, a sostenuto. When I press this button, sostenuto, on the ground org, you can just hold the note down and it will stay. I can then go to another manual and play, change it. And so as soon as I play another one, it changes notes. like a prolongeron on a harmonium or something. I can have chords. As soon as I turn it off, it stops. There's also one for the pedal as well, which is here. So I can hold a pedal 2 notes or 1 note. Or even if I want to just maybe hold a bass note, put both feet somewhere else, I can do that. It's quite common nowadays. So that's the organ of the Palace of the Arts, Bela Bartok Concert Hall in Budapest, Hungary. I hope you've enjoyed looking around it. Thank you very much. I'm here at the Royal Albert Hall in London at what is undoubtedly one of the greatest concert organs in the entire world. It's an iconic place, and for that reason it's a very busy place, which is why I'm here at 5 AM in the morning to set up for an organ concert. However, I thought I'd give you a quick tour of this organ because it's so rare to get to hear it. Originally built in 1871, rebuilt in the 1920s and 30s and enlarged, we have 147 stops, 4 manuals and a pedal board. Originally by Henry Willis, the original Willis pipework is all still here. On the Great Division, we actually have 2 Great Divisions now. One of them is all the original Willis pipework, the dot. So originally that was a bit underpowered, so Harrison and Harrison's added a whole second huge chorus to this, which starts at 32 foot. Very bright and very big. On top of that, on the Great, we have these reeds which are absolutely massive. We have a tromba, a sound, slightly smaller sound, and then a harmonic trumpet. And the reed chorus on its own, just together. If you just take just the Great Division on its own, we have this absolutely massive sound. Equally, the pedal is on huge scale. Here at the console, you don't get a real balance. It's very sort of big and a very loud sound. But we have these big pedal reeds as well, which is very famous for. The ophicline, which then turns into a double ophicline. Right at the back of there we have a swell box, and things like the 32-foot trombone are actually in the box, and then you can take a 32-foot trombone on way almost absolutely anything, completely out of the way. On the other side we have the swell, which builds up. Fairly standard with this sort of swell, but on top of it we have these 2 tubas. Big scale tubas, but it's so far back you don't even hear them, which you need for the whole chorus to balance with the rest of the organ, and it's still very far away. Choir and orchestral division down at the bottom here. We have an amazing string section, probably the most developed string section on any English organ. We also have a very big solo organ up here, which has things like corno di bassetto, bassoons, oboe. It also has flutes, harmonic flutes. And we also have bells. We have a carillon, which is right at the top. Tubular bells. Then we also have a bass drum, which is right at the top of the organ, all made by the Premier Company. On top of it, the crowning glory of the whole organ are the solo bombard division, these huge reeds. A famous sound of this organ is the orchestral trumpet, which is available at various pitches, 16, 8 and 4. It has a quint and its own mixture. Smaller canopium. A tuba, which is still huge by any standards, not compared with this thing, the tuba mirabilis, which is also 16, 8 and 4. Which dominates the whole organ. An incredible instrument, extremely versatile, very hard to get time in here to actually go through all the sounds and possibilities, but an amazing instrument for all concerts, heard at the proms and very rarely for organ concerts. But I hope you've enjoyed having a look around. It's always a huge pleasure and an honour to be here. So this is the organ of the Royal Albert Hall in London.
Sydney Town Hall's 19th century grand organ has been restored to its former glory. The 125-year-old instrument is among the top 6 pipe organs in the world. Rachel Papazzoni had a private audience with the city's resident organist.
It's been a massive project to restore Sydney Town Hall's grand organ. It's taken 5 years and more than $1 million. Each pipe, there's 9,000 of them in this instrument, has been taken out, cleaned and put back where it belongs. I was very lucky to speak to Sydney's chief organist, Robert Ampt, who told me how special this instrument is.
One thing that the restoration work has done, it has made the organ sound brighter than it used to. Often in past times people thought, oh, it's a cumbersome old lady, it's, you know, drags its feet and it's a bit thick and ugly, but now it has a very brilliant sound. It's really, really exciting. Yes, it can be very soft and beautiful, and at other times it can be just pure animal.
The instrument was originally built in London and assembled here in Sydney 125 years ago, and at the time it was the world's largest pipe organ.
Because it was built by a very, very famous English organ builder for a place that in those days was a long, long way away, our feeling is that this organ was the organ that the organ builder actually wanted to build without too much local interference from all the local experts about how an organ should really be. And so the quality of this organ, in both its sound and the way it's made, has made it a very, very special instrument.
Sydney's grand organ has featured in a variety of concerts and recitals. Robert Ampt says one of the most memorable for him was playing at the former Prime Minister Gough Whitlam's service last year.
That was something where the organ featured very, very in a big way. I mean, he was a music-loving man, and to be playing here for that an hour of music beforehand, and then joining with the orchestra and the choir for some of the items as well, it was a real thrill.
The size of this instrument creates a unique and incredible sound, and the best way to experience that is to hear Robert Ampt play.
Okay, so that's an introduction to a few different organs. So there's a couple of things that we need to chat about, and I'll give Greg another call so he can answer your questions directly. But we need to talk about the special shoes that organists wear. Greg will also want to talk about the foot, as in 8 foot and 16 foot. Yes, and also what registration means. So, hang on, I'm giving Greg a call. Hi. Cool.
Yeah.
You there? Good.
Can you see me? Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Might
yeah.
have to adjust the angle a bit.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
All right. So feet.
Shoes.
Hi. All right. I better not look at the.
comments.
Yeah. I shouldn't. Right. So feet. Okay. What? There's a little bit of lag. Hold on. It sounds like a foreign correspondent actually responding to TV, but and I know why, because I was. Sorry.
Right.
I was listening to the video. Now it's better.
Yeah.
So feet. You might have heard a couple of numbers actually flying in the air, like 32, 16, 8 foot. Now that originally means that the bottom key, the bottom note of the keyboard on the organ, a bottom C note as it was supposed to be 8 feet long, 8 foot long. Now that is the pitch that you get on your piano or any other keyboard. So as you go up, it corresponds to the pitch that you actually play on the piano. if once you look at the organ console, you might notice that it looks like there are less keys than you would find on a piano. So normally on a full piano keyboard is 88 keys. Organ is usually 61 or 56, so it's a little less. However, there's a lot more to it because the depending on the sizes of pipes as well as their build, you can go lower as well as higher. So we've established the 8-foot pitch. So you say middle C is middle C as you would play on a piano. If you want to go 8 notes lower, you pull a 16-foot stop. So that's, physically speaking, like normally speaking, that would be double the length of the pipe. However, if you cover the top of the pipe, as if I'm sure you were kids, you were playing with the sort of beer bottles and trying to fill them up with water and try to cover the top of that, then you get that can give you a lower pitch as well if you cover the top. Same thing works with the organ. So you cover the top of the pipe, it lowers the pitch. So if you run out of space, like in a hall, which is not likely because they're usually quite large, then you can save space by covering the top of the pipe and getting a lower pitch, so an octave lower pitch. So 16 foot, and you go down another 8 notes, 32 foot, which is mostly on the pedals you would find, but sometimes on large instruments, such as these ones you've seen, you can also find them on the manuals. Okay, 8 foot, again, back to basic pitch. You can go up as well. So the next high one will be a 4 foot. So normally speaking, the lowest note on the keyboard played by the hands, that bottom note, would be 4 feet long. So that's a 4 foot stop. You can go up another 2 notes. That's 2 foot or 1 foot. And you get all sorts of varieties as if you look at physics and the harmonics as they build up by fractions, then you can add fifths, stops or pipe ranks that represent the fifth note above that bass tone, or a third. So third, 3 notes above the bass note. So I know it may sound a bit confusing, but it all adds color to the basic pitch under the basic pipe.
And this means that you're just like, you're pressing one key down, you whack on the 16 foot, and that same key is giving you a note, an octave lower.
And that sounds as well. Yes, yeah. Or you can eliminate that, but I mean, that's a bit complicated. So obviously you can eliminate the actual pitch that you are pressing down and just have the other one sound. So you get this whole spectrum just by pressing one note, which you wouldn't find on any other instrument. Yeah. And amazingly, as such, the sound spectrum of the organ is actually equivalent or larger to an orchestra's. So you wouldn't think that, see, the smallest piccolos, from the smallest sort of piccolo notes, you get down to the double bass or the low brass notes. The organ can't do that. Yes, it can. Yes, it can rival. Yes, it can match that tessiture and the sound spectrum that these other instruments have. So, in other words, you can have a one-person orchestra just by yourself, apart from competing with an orchestra.
So, okay, now we need to talk about registration, because I think Mark's noticed that the stops were moving by themselves. And,
well, it is actually by the control of the organist. So you can pull them, those draw knobs, by hand, obviously. But if you need a lot of stops quickly at your disposal, then you need to pre-program them. And then you can activate a group of these draw knobs just by a single button, say combination 1, or general combination, which includes the entire instrument. So it will affect the entire pipe organ, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, or A, B, C, depending on what the qualifications or the classification of these buttons are.
And these buttons are just below each keyboard, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, again, this is another aspect that you can change just the single keyboard by a row of buttons. So what you could see, especially on these English organs, because that's predominantly that tradition, below each keyboard you see a set of buttons, a set of hand pistons that you can press, and you can change that particular keyboard's setup. Normally, it's a build-up from the softest to the loudest, or what we call a crescendo or a decrescendo. So it decreases the volume as you go to the left to the lower numbered buttons. Or you can have these are called divisionals because they control each division, each keyboard. Or you can have general combinations, which would then affect the entire organ at once. And this is especially handy with these larger instruments because you just simply don't have that many limbs like an octopus to lash out and change at once. So technology does it for you. So you just press a button and it makes these draw knobs pop out, or tabs, whatever they are on that particular organ. Shoes. They are usually dancing shoes we use because they are flexible and thin enough to comfortably move between the keys. So, I mean, just for fun, when I was a teenager, I tried lace boots as well. I haven't got as far as ski boots, but because they are quite rigid and heavy if you decide to fancy a pair of Martens on the day, then I guess you need a little bit more practice, and you just have to be a bit gentle around the pedal board because they are thick, big, and heavy. So chances are you're not going to be playing a flying pedal passage with those shoes. So dancing shoes, which are thin and very flexible, also in the sole. So because you like to feel the notes as well sometimes. The way, and as one of you actually mentioned that you don't look at the keyboards, the pedals while you're playing. Exactly like that. So especially with the pedals, we have ways to feel our way, to map out the pedal board while playing even without looking. And that's what these shoes also help us. Or we play in socks, obviously. I usually practice at socks at home. So why bother, putting on shoes unless it's a video recording or something. So, but I normally change them every day, so don't worry. So dancing, and usually add about a centimeter of a heel at the back, just to be able to distinguish between the upper, what we call the black notes, the shorter top notes, and the lower notes. It's easier than just playing with a flat sole shoe. See what I mean?
Because actually, with your feet, you can actually play two different notes, one with the heel and one with the toe. Because I remember we went to a Christopher Wrench concert, and he was playing 4 pedal notes at once, and I went up to him and asked at the end, how do you do that? And he said, well, I play the lower note with my heel and the upper note with my toe. It's just amazing. Okay, so I did that in the Funeraille, the Liszt Funeraille arrangement on the video as well. So actually that's 3 notes at once. Jean Guillou, one of the top French organists, he passed away about 2 years ago. When he arranged the pictures at an exhibition by Mussorgsky, that has runs of thirds on the pedal board. So you need to be really flexible and nimble to be able to do passages just like scales you would do by hand. The pedal passages can get just as fast and independent of the hands as well. So it's good to have shoes that are able to do that, especially and then also, well, if you have a concert, obviously, unless you are Rhoda Scott, you can't play in your socks. Mark wants to know if you can get them in size 15.
I think so. You can also get them custom made. Yeah, I think you have to just. My last ones were from Organ Master Shoes, but there are other, Tic Tac Toe and some of the other companies you can on the website you can order them from, and then you either send them a picture drawing around your feet, and then you send that drawing to the manufacturer, or you just look at the table. They usually give a chart what sizes there are. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we've got, David Bailey, Kathy. He's a brilliant theatre organ player. He's got quite large feet as well. So obviously, it's size. I don't think is an issue in that regard. You just have to give them the correct measurement. So
Jesse's saying, does the organist have to move around to reach all the pedals? And they do. I've noticed. I've noticed that it's very It's very athletic.
The basic rule is that you stay in the middle and you don't sit too much backwards on the bench, because that would inhibit your thigh muscles.
Yeah.
Because you need that flexibility for the feet to be able to move around. And then you, just like in skiing, you move the lower part of your body just below the waist. You try to be sort of static and stable with the upper torso in that middle point, and then you just turn under the waist with the two legs as much as you can. Obviously, sometimes you need to reach. When you just have a solo paddle passage, then people normally just grab the edges of the bench for stability. But I mean, yeah, the basic rule is just you stay in the middle and sort of occupy about 2/3 of the bench, the front of the bench, to be able to comfortably play the paddleboard. So it's like when you go down to the subway and you see that yellow line, behind this line is fine. That's what my older teacher used to say. So you better not be sloppy and just sit, right at the back of the bench. Otherwise, if you have to play a faster paddle passage, it will catch up on you.
Okay, so we're going to the next piece on our program, because no program on the pipe organ would be complete without at least something from Bach. Now, I've chosen one of his monster pieces. I've heard Chris Wrench play it, and we'll hear Chris Wrench later on in the program. The Passacaglia and Fugue in C minor by Bach. So it's got two parts to it. You've got the Passacaglia, and of course a Passacaglia is like a set of variations on a bass tune.
Yeah, and it's a dance originally. It's a dance originally. I think it's Spanish, and you get just a solo tune which repeats again and again. But forget about boredom. The magic of the piece is how your imagination, as well as ingenuity as a composer, unfolds, building variations on that single theme. So this is one of the most ingenious late works of J.S. Bach. Having just a simple, I think it's 8 bars theme, and then playing that through the whole piece by adding variations. So if you've heard Ravel's Bolero, so you get that same and then some people actually get really annoyed by that piece because they get sick of the repetitions of the same theme over and over. But if you think in terms of how the orchestra takes that theme and plays around, and the piece evolves from that, it's a completely different perspective. And this is, even though it has two sections, so one is got the Passacaglia, but the theme, the dance theme of the Passacaglia is actually taken and adapted to a particular compositional theme called a fugue. The fugue basically has, again, a single line introducing the piece, but then at a certain pitch, there's another theme entering, which is repeats the major theme. And then another theme enters, which is different to the previous one, and that has its reflections, so to speak, acoustic reflections in different pitches. And then these themes combine at the end. So it's a very strict and actually quite a difficult compositional genre, compositional form. It's just like in chess, you are only allowed to step this or that way with certain figures. So you cannot breach the rules, because then it defies basically the rules of the fugue itself. But Bach was one of the most ingenious people developing this genre, as well as being an absolute master of this compositional form, so much so that later composers such as Mozart, which we're also going to hear, even though Bach wasn't in vogue in popular fashion playing at the time when Mozart or Beethoven lived, but they all seriously studied the mastery, the craft of Bach as an example, and the model they built their compositional style on as well. So, and then apart from the development of the theme, you will also hear how the organ registration develops and the different varieties that are being used. The organ itself is a gem, and it's one of the rare treasures that survived 3 centuries. I can almost say 3 centuries, because the original instrument in Rötha, Germany, that's the eastern part of Germany, northwest of Dresden, and I think it's only 18 kilometers from Leipzig, where Bach was based in his later years, survived these 3 centuries almost intact with very minor modifications. And the organ builder himself was one of the champions of, say, organ building at the time, and one of the top organ, and still remains one of the most prominent organ builders in Germany. You have to imagine that Germany at this time wasn't a united country, but all different principalities. They had their different rules, they had their different culture, different wealth, different in other aspects of life as well. In mostly the southern part of Germany, eastern southern part of Germany, Gottfried Silbermann was among the most prominent organ builders. And he also had a little bit of French influence as well. I think he built some organs in France, nearby France as well. Whereas in the north, it was Ab Schnitger, who built marvels such as the Hamburg St. Jacob's Church, Jakobikirche. And these organs are slightly different in their concept, in their sort of sonic landscape, so to speak, the registration and how they build up. Obviously, there are lots of similarities, but they are very particular instruments. If I say an Antognati or a Stradivarius or a Guarnieri violin, it's that sort of caliber. So the Bentleys, the Rolls Royces of organ building. So with that in mind, this particular organ was built, as I said, in 1721. There is another famous organ in town as well, which is the Marienkirche. This is the Georgenkirche, which is the St. George's Church. And it's one of the few remaining or original organs surviving in centuries. It has 23 stops, so which is roughly about, I think, 2,000 pipes, I would say. And because it's so close to Leipzig, it was also visited by many famous composers, such as Felix Mendelssohn. So he actually played this instrument, and obviously Bach at his time would have also played, given it was 1721, Bach died in 1750. So, and the performer himself, now if anyone says that organ playing is a dying art, I invite to go on Xavier Vonnes's channel, who has, I think, reached 18 million views on one of his tracks, and I don't know how many 50,000 subscribers. Now say that again, that it's a dying art.
So you actually know Xavier.
Yes.
You know Xavier personally.
Yeah, well, yeah, we met in 1990 at the music school in Budapest, where I was learning the organ.
He's another Hungarian.
He was, and he's a bit of an eccentric. So he's
which of us aren't? Which of us aren't?
Yeah, exactly. Well, especially all organists, I should say. But he brought a different perspective at the time into Hungary and the organ playing. So compared to some of the other organists, and he also made it very popular for the youth, especially, so large crowds.
His concerts are packed out.
Yes. Yeah, he also got a very good marketing strategy. But yes, he gets quite a following for his concerts as well. Some may argue with his style of playing, others don't. If I say eccentric, he is by far, now that I know more people, not the most eccentric.
Well, it'd have to be Cameron Carpenter, wouldn't it?
I was about to say yes. I think Xavier sort of appears a bit conservative, I think, compared to Cameron Carpenter. Both are brilliant players. And I think without much further ado, I think we should probably get into the track and just see how he plays and what he can show on this beautiful vintage German organ in Rotha, Germany.
Sure, I'll hang up now, and I'll see you in about 17 minutes.
Enjoy.
Okay. See you in a bit. So that was Bach's Passacaglia and Fugue in C minor. And I'll get Greg back on the line in a second, because I think actually, I think Jesse might have mentioned mathematical. I believe that there are in the Passacaglia there are 33 variations, one for every year of Christ's life. But I'll get Greg back on the line. Okay.
Or changing earrings.
Yeah.
Very popular there. Going out in my own house. Anyway. Yes. Absolutely correct. And he was a master. So what you might say is, in layman terms, that he wasn't just a pretty face as a composer and a player, but a very educated theologian.
Yeah.
As well as he had quite a way around numbers, or sort of a mathematical side of it as well. And as you mentioned, the 33 variations on this particular theme. So that wasn't accidental, actually. So 3 being a very popular, so to speak, number or prominent number during centuries because of its church associations relating to the Trinity, with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So that, and even times with 3, like 3, 4, or related to that sort of concept. Same thing actually repeats in his what's called Trinity Prelude and Fugue, again a late work like the Passacaglia, where he uses 3 different themes, especially in the fugue section, and each are said to represent, the 3 personalities of the Trinity, and then later these themes intertwine and is coming to a glorious conclusion, all uniting in one conclusion at the end of the fugue. So, and concepts such as the golden section, he frequently used. So he consciously and very wisely planned these mathematical concepts into his compositions as well. So it's not just a mastery of composition itself, but in other relations such as theology or mathematics. I mean, he was, let's just say, a champion as well, so to speak. So a very, very smart and sophisticated genius in a lot of aspects, such as, Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. So not just a particular subject, but basically a pioneer in a lot of other areas as well.
So we've got some Mozart coming up. Is that the next track?
Yeah, I wanted to mention a couple of things with Mozart. You see, we mentioned that later composers also referred back to Bach, even though at the time he wasn't, so to speak, in vogue, because there were other styles popular, and because they had to survive, they had to write and focus on their own styles and their own period, rather than promoting previous instruments, which didn't really happen until the time of Felix Mendelssohn and Liszt in the Romantic era, where not only they were promoting their own contemporaries and friends as composers, but they retrospectively tried to present the geniuses of previous centuries. So, namely, the help me with numbers. I think it's 1825 when he presented the Bach Passion.
Oh, okay.
So Matthew Passion. I think it was 80. I think it was in the 1830s. I can't. The actual year escapes me now. I'm a bit embarrassed, but he was the first one to present a full Bach work to the audience of to an audience of the 19th century. See, an 18th century composer promoted and introduced into a 19th century audience, which was a concept unheard of before. But at the same time, these great composers were all very aware of what past centuries, prominent figures and composers of past centuries as were. And so Mozart was very well aware and knew Bach's art, so much so that there's an anecdote that there was a particular work, I think it was again one of the Passions, that he saw the score of, and then he meticulously put the parts out on a large table, because it wasn't just a single orchestral book, it was like different parts, lined them up, and sort of like running around a ping pong table, like this large dining table, he went round and round and then basically analyzed what he saw on these scores in his head. And he was deeply moved. So, I mean, he was sort of crying at the end because he was so deeply touched by the ingenuity of Bach's composition and this soaring mastery of music composition. And obviously, as such, he also learned a lot from Bach's compositional style. And that includes, obviously later composers such as Beethoven or Debussy. I think Debussy famously said that before they sit down to a paper of composition, each composer should pray to Bach to avoid mediocrity. So much was his respect to J.S. Bach. The next piece is a very interesting one. From various points of view, Mozart, the pipe organ itself wasn't as prominent in its own right as solo instrument back in Mozart's time as it was in Bach's time. So there's very little difference because Bach died in 1750. Mozart was born in 1756.
Yeah.
So the Baroque period followed by the classical period. However, although Mozart didn't compose much for organ, he still regarded the organ as the king of instruments. He visited and famously played some instruments around Europe while he was a wide traveler, as we know, right from his early childhood. This particular piece, the Fantasia in F minor, is from a collection of 3 which Mozart wrote for tiny little gadgets, which were very much in vogue at the time. Sort of imagine the iPods of the time. Little mechanical rolls actually playing music, I think autonomously. And because they became very popular as a gadget, as this mechanical sort of ingenious little, contraptions, composers were asked to write pieces for it. Now you could imagine it's a bit like a music box, maybe slightly larger than a music box. And I think in Germany it was called Flötenuhr, flute clock, mechanical clocks. And normally you would imagine something sort of tiny and sweet and cute, you might define, as the German would say, gemütlich, little musical morsels, so to speak. However, when you listen to this particular piece, it shows far greater dimensions. Mozart being Mozart, imagine Mozart being asked to compose a jingle for a commercial. And he presents you with half a symphony or something like that. So when you listen to this piece, the last thing that would come into your mind is a little music box, in your bedroom, on your bedroom table or something. It's the registration, the and obviously you need an instrument such as Notre Dame in Paris to represent that, the contrast. You still get the sweet little middle sections, the lyrical sections. However, you get this huge grand introduction, which is like a French overture, and I think that the organs being French interprets it as such. Some may argue whether this is the right interpretation, but I think it sits really well for that organ and from a perspective of a French organist as Pierre Cochereau. Pierre Cochereau was organist at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris between 1955 and 1984. And we also credit him for popularizing the organ with younger generations tremendously. But probably the quality that he's mostly known for is his fantastic ability to compose something on the spot and play it at the same time. In other words, improvise or extemporize.
And we'll have that a little later. Actually,
we'll see that a little later. Yes, as well. For us organists, and there's just a little introduction, but maybe I leave that to the after the Mozart. Most of the big composers, they were also quite prominent on not just piano or harpsichord, but organ as well. And the liturgy in the church requires us to fill in certain sections, such as to eliminate noise, say when people are walking up to communion, or there are parts like during the offertory when the gifts are being prepared at the altar, and someone goes around with the incense, the thurifer, but different directions. So it's quite the grand sort of interlude, so to speak, within the service, which has to be covered by music to suppress the noise going with the action. And therefore, organists in particular, as well, apart from other musicians at the time, more likely than others, had to be masters of the skill of improvisation, had to know how to fill out a particular time without having a prepared piece, to be able to start and finish at the given time. And Pierre Cochereau of the 20th century was a marvelous representative of that. He is a representative of an entire school, the French school of improvisation, which is still the most famous in the world for organists. So any organist who claims to be an improviser or wants to do concert improvisation studies in France with one of the greats. Another great one we'll see also later. Xavier himself, he studied in France as well. He learned from Cochereau, as he says himself. So I think, in other words, let the music speak now, and then we get back to later sort of aspects as well. So Pierre Cochereau, the resident organist of Notre Dame, playing the Fantasia in F minor, originally composed for a little mechanical clock as a set of three pieces by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
See you in a bit, Greg. Bye. So, can you believe that that's Mozart? It's quite unbelievable. You've triggered Greg's dirty mind now. Heaven help you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's just the particular video we found, Nancy. Okay. I'll get Greg back on the line, and we'll talk about the next piece, which is I think has a very interesting story. Hi again.
All right, that was an interesting derailment.
Well, you see, this happens on Nick's live chats all the time. So
See, the interesting things Mozart inspire us to do.
So this next piece has an interesting story, I believe. Does it have
If you tell me what the next one is, because it's not on my piece.
I think it's that Viceroy one or whatever.
De Raison. De Raison. Yes. This he was 17th century composer, sort of contemporary of the famous Couperin family, also in the employment of the Sun King, Le Roi Soleil, French as it was said. And so Francois and Louis was, I think, the uncle, and Francois was the nephew. They were both very prominent musicians in the French court. And Raison was himself an organist and a very prominent composer for organ as such. And this is a quite interesting little piece. Normally, you hear a lot of church-related collections relating to different parts of the Mass, and a lot of these composers, Raison, De Grigny, Couperin, composed for the actual Catholic Mass. So they had to provide musical commentaries during the service. This one, however, is a tribute to none other than the Sun King himself, when he visited the Hôtel de Ville, otherwise known as the town hall, in 1687. And the title reads Vive le roi des Parisiens. Long live, or may the king of Parisians live. So sort of a secular little piece as a tribute to the king entering the town hall. The first part is le cinquième ton, in the fifth tone. It's in C major, so obviously they had a very sort of sophisticated categorizations. I've actually yet to understand this sort of system they had, just reading back on Rousseau's study in regards to the different tones that they were using and why they were named premier or deuxième, first, second, troisième, or cinquième, as in this case, fifth tone. But you hear a marvelous musical inspiration of this visit, and interpreted by a very able instrument representing that period, or slightly later, given this organ that you're going to hear was built in 1774. So that's roughly a generation's time, 15 years before the French Revolution. Still well before the Revolution. And was Raison lived in the 17th century. But this particular organ, just like its German counterpart in Röther, was completely saved. But it wasn't just the tender love and care of the authorities, but a classic example
of someone being at the right place at the right time, because obviously this being a very young instrument, it saw the French Revolution very soon after it was built in the 1790s. And the legend says that there were some revolutionary mobs approaching that church in southern France. This is in Provence. And the organist started playing revolutionary tunes, including the Marseillaise, which is not, strictly speaking, ecclesiastical music material or church part of the liturgy, so to speak. But it certainly helped the organ escape, because most of these symbols, pipe organs being part of that, were not hugely favored by
the peasants.
People of like the symbols of the Ancien Régime, the French royals, as well as the rich, the wealthy clergy as part of the aristocracy. So you could imagine that, unfortunately, some of these churches and the interiors and what you found in them were damaged or destroyed. Notre Dame itself was used as a gun barrel store, I think. Stored arms basically during the revolution, so it was used for that. So these churches were decommissioned. But this one, this marvelous basilica, Saint-Maximin La Sainte in Provence, was actually saved. And it's quite a different little sort of almost vintage. So sometimes when you listen to a recording of the 1930s on an LP, so it has that particular acoustic vintage, like a wine. Obviously, I cannot relate to wine acoustically other than the glugging, but let's not get into that. The French wines, that's worth another topic. But this beautiful richness. I mean, if I was to describe French music right from the time of the Sun King, was grace and grandeur. And I don't think I need to say anything more when you listen to this piece next.
Okay. I'll see you in a bit.
Think.
Okay, bye-bye. And continuing on the French theme, I might group these two next tracks together. One is, I think they're both on the Notre Dame organ. One is by a composer called Vierne, and I was absolutely floored when Greg introduced me to Vierne, and he can fill you in on all the goss about Vierne because he had quite a tortured, interesting life. And then you're going to see an actual improvisation by Cochereau at the Notre Dame organ. So just cueing you into Greg now. Here you are again.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Vierne, his life and his compositions and this next piece.
So it actually relates well to the previous recording as a basilica, Notre Dame being the national cathedral, and today it houses the nation's largest pipe organ as such as well. And we are going to hear, we've already heard Cochereau once in the Mozart, but Vierne was actually one of his predecessors at Notre Dame, so both resident organists at the Notre Dame Cathedral. Vierne was there between 1900 and 1937. So much so, if I may say, that he actually died at the organ
with his boots on, yeah.
Yes. And even more interestingly, it was his 1750th recital, which otherwise corresponds to the death year of J.S. Bach. So he was. His last piece that he was playing was one of his own compositions, the triptych, three little pieces within that, and I think it was Communions. Actually, no, the last one was he played. It was a piece dedicated to a young child who died, Stèle pour un enfant défunt. And then after that, it was supposed to be an improvisation following, and he started depressing. I think it was the last note of the piece, that particular piece I was saying.
Yeah.
And he just didn't release that D flat note, and the people were starting to wonder what was happening. And he actually had a heart attack over the keyboards.
Yeah.
And soon, I think in the ambulance, he died. But he was basically, we might say that he died at his beloved resident organ console.
What a way to go!
What a way to go! Now, you heard Cochereau, who then followed Vienne. There was, I think, there's another organist in between from 1955, and he managed to complete a liturgical cycle in Lent, where the priest was reading from the Bible, various readings dedicated for Lent and sort of Lenten meditations, and Cochereau was to provide organ commentary, musical commentary on that. And the last one, with the last reading, which is a reading from Matthew, ending with the phrase that I shall be with you till the end of time. He secretly smuggled some of his brass friends up to the loft and finished on this glorious chorale, concluding chorale of Bach's St. John Passion. And he started with the Passion Chorale, like a little quiet theme, and it developed into this full organ, completed with brass, including the famous trumpeter Maurice Andre at the time. This marvelous cycle, concluding this glorious conclusion of this set of readings. And the following day, he died of aneurysm. So just imagine he was able to finish that. And then a few hours upon retiring home, I think it was Lyon at the time when he was a director of the conservatory, he died. Getting back to Vierne, very interesting life. He was congenitally, I think he was nearly blind from childhood. They managed to improve his sight somewhat, but he needed large scores and very large, basically notes to read as well as to compose, to be able to see. It's a very poor sight. He nearly lost the ability to play the pedals because he broke his leg at one occasion.
Gosh.
He needed treatment outside France a couple of times, which means leaving Notre Dame for a while in the hands of what one might say rivals. So he had to keep an eye on that. His wife left him, claiming that his daughter wasn't even his.
Oh no!
I think it was when he composed a lovely little lullaby to this little daughter Colette. The wife made this nasty remark that, why do you bother? It's not even yours. And
you can see why his music's so tortured.
In that, and so intensely chromatic, the semitone steps up and down, and he was a master of that. It's fantastic music, and at the same time, he created this musical wonderland in his compositions, not just for organ but for others. This is beautiful, and at the same time grand. And then what a marvelous conclusion. Shuffling of this mortal coil after your final recital, being able to finish most of the recital. The actual piece that you're going to hear is the Carillon de Westminster, which is a character piece from 24 pieces of fantasy. There's a collection, the 24 pièces de fantaisie. And this particular one takes the theme of the Westminster plot.
Big Ben
itself.
But it's not quite. It's not quite a perfect.
In a way that there are various theories that when Henry Willis, the organ builder, who actually gave him this theme, and in fact the piece was then dedicated to the great organ builder Henry Willis, who also built Westminster Cathedral, Westminster Abbey organ, got the theme wrong.
Yeah.
while humming it as a theme to Vierne, or Vierne got part of it wrong. Yeah. But then when you later listen to it's the second phrase within the piece. But when you listen to the piece a bit further, then he actually gets the theme right. So if you listen carefully, so sort of a tribute between two, or a sort of doffing between two cathedrals, not overhead, between Westminster and Notre Dame. And the performer of this piece is another resident organist currently, actually. Well, he can't play now because the cathedral is closed, so he has to wait until 2024 before the organ can actually sound again, hopefully. If all goes well, is Olivier Latry. He is among the top organists. Brilliant improviser, as you would expect in this line of organists, as Vierne himself was. In fact, some say that even this piece that you're going to hear on the theme of Big Ben was improvised first and then later composed and noted down by Vierne.
Did he come to Brisbane? Did he come to Brisbane a few years ago? Olivier
Yes, he did.
Because you've got a photo with him, haven't you?
Yeah, I know him from Hungary. I hear the masterclass in the Esztergom Cathedral, which you hear at the end back there. So He also taught quite a few organists in Hungary, actually, who won then competitions. So he's a teacher at the Conservatoire, and one of the three resident organists. So what Koshra was doing basically by himself, between 1955 and 1984, is now taken up by three L's: Latry, Olivier Latry, Lefebvre, Philippe Lefebvre, and Jean-Pierre Leguet. Leguet has retired, so I think it's Vincent Dubois now instead of him. But the rest are still there. So obviously when the organ is playable. And then there's another two organists for the chancel organ downstairs, because they have this fantastic tradition. I actually wrote a thesis about it, and I'm not going to rave about the whole subject, but it's worth another talk. of this brilliant French school of improvisation, that those large churches could afford two instruments. And the little chancel organ was accompanying the cantor and the choir, and that was responded by the grand organ, either accompanying the crowd or making solo instrumental commentaries, like little improvised verses or something, alternating with the little organ downstairs. So in some of these churches, including Notre Dame, when you say went to the Church of La Madeleine, which is near la Place de la Concorde, where the big bloody executions took place in the French Revolution, but this marvelous sort of Greek colonnade style temple, the church, La Madeleine, where Fauré and Saint-Saëns were organists. And imagine these two seated at the same time at the organ during a mass or a musical performance, just passing the ball back and forth to each other. I mean, would you have wanted to be a fly
on that
cathedral
wall? Okay, so we're going to hear a bit of Vierne and then
Carillon de Westminster.
Yeah, which you've actually played yourself at St. John's. Yeah, and then an improvisation by Cochereau.
On a Christmas theme. With the second one, just note that the organist makes this up entirely on the spot.
Yeah,
no preparation except for the registration. It's just happening there as he invents the music.
Okay, see you in a bit. So that was a improvisation. He just made that up on the spot. Okay, so we come to another French composer. I'll let Greg pronounce it, and another organist that he's got a bit to say about. And then we'll get to an organist that Greg and I know very, very well, who was Greg's teacher here in Brisbane. So putting you back to Greg.
Okay.
So we have Daniel Roth, is that right?
Yes.
Next, do you want to pronounce the composer?
Dufay.
Dufay, yeah.
Maurice Dufay. He was one of Koshro's teachers actually at the Paris Conservatory.
Wow.
And he also was a very prominent organist composer. His resident church was Saint-Étienne-du-Mont in Paris, but he also deputized for Vienne at the time, so for a while in Notre Dame, apart from Dupré, another great. So Dupré was actually the one of Roth's predecessors. As resident organists in Saint-Sulpice. There's so much I could probably talk about, but Saint-Sulpice has probably one of the nicest and most precious pipe organs preserved. It's due to, so when I mentioned the Bentley or Rolls-Royce, this is it. This is crème de la crème. This was one of the organ builder Aristide Cavaillé-Coll's magnum opus, so one of his major works.
Do you want to talk about Cavaillé-Coll?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Silbermann in Germany, or Schnittger, France also had some really prominent organ builders. In fact, the whole organ school and the school of organ building is predominantly German and French. So it's actually handy to know these two languages when we study repertoire of the instrument and play. And Cavaillé-Coll was in the 19th century. He came from also an organ builder family already, and I think we wouldn't be too complacent to say that we owe the symphonic organ concept to his inventions and his organ building. See, before the early 19th century, the other instruments actually copied the organ in polyphony. So that was their model. Whereas this turned around a little bit in the 19th century, that the symphonic orchestra, especially with Berlioz, Hector Berlioz, started to develop, started to be bigger and more sophisticated. And the organ, the pipe organ, also started to follow that. Now, this was quite a challenging task, because when you see those other keys moving, when you see these organists playing the manuals and see other keys moving, that's because the more you can join these keyboards together,
and couple
but then you will couple. That's as it's called, coupling the keyboards, the manuals. But that also means extra resistance from the keys, adopted to the particular keyboard that you play.
Yeah.
So it means additional pressure. So the fast passages, in particular on larger instruments, require really strong hands and fingers to be able to play and resist that pressure, depressing the keys. Now, I think it was around 1840 when Aristide Cavaillé-Coll built his first instrument in Saint-Denis, where the kings, the French royal family is buried, has been buried for centuries, the French kings. And that was his major first organ. And this was made possible by some astonishing collaboration between him and an English inventor called, I think it was Edward Barker. Mm-hmm. What Barker did is he worked out a way to alleviate this pressure, this resistance of the keys by pumping air under the keyboards.
Oh, how clever.
Which means it's like pneumatically alleviating the key pressures, which meant in turn that you could build these beautiful amphitheater-shaped. This is a bit like the new console of Notre Dame, but obviously this is a lot more modern console. Mm. Plus, you could introduce combinations. So you could introduce groove stops, which could be activated by a ventil on just above the pedals. So you could prepare combinations, and at a given point, by depressing that foot ventil, you could activate that. I hope it's clear the way I'm explaining it. This is obviously a little complicated, but and with the pressure of air actually helping, apart from obviously working the blower, you made it possible to mimic the symphonic orchestra easily, because the physical pressure wasn't as debilitating for the performer anymore. Yeah. And that meant that you could compose not just arrangements from symphonic works written for orchestra and play that on pipe organ, but also compose symphonic works in their own right. So people like composers like César Franck, you know, the Panis Angelicus, if you remember the tune. He was a famous composer and very famous organist at the time. And he himself started to compose these large symphonic organ works, like the Grand Pièce Symphonique, the grand symphonic piece, or the choral fantasias that he composed, or Liszt himself, who also, I believe, played this particular organ. But so it meant that you could create this new design for a console. However, when you look at this instrument, this was restored, unlike some of the others, like Notre Dame, which had an American-style console. If you saw Koshro's improvisation, that was still the old console that covered the Cavaillé coil console from 1868 when he built the organ. This one has just been installed, I think, 2 years ago or 3. That is the latest. And it mimics that amphitheater shape. But you now have the computer technology. So you have MIDI built into that console, which means that you can actually go downstairs when the church is empty and have the organ play what you had previously played, or record your entire recital and you just feel crappy on the day or whatever, then you just go downstairs, you know, press the button and let the organ, it's not coming through speakers, the organ actually plays back what you had previously recorded and listen to what you did there. And then just preserve that, save it on a USB stick or whatever. So, you know, computer technology, none of that existed back in the 19th century at Aristide Cavaillé-Coll's time. However, this particular instrument at Saint-Sulpice was restored with the original console, which means that you need co-pilots.
Yeah.
You need not just page turners, that would be too easy. Right.
No, you need someone pressing the registration and stuff.
Yes, if you look at what he does at the start, he has a little introduction. He himself being a pupil, lucky devil of Maurice Duruflé. You see the schemes actually designed, written out, or like drawings on a sheet of paper for the assistants, how to operate and how to activate the stops. Because there's no computer, there's nothing, there's no press of a button unless you do it yourself. But good luck on the size of an instrument like this one. So with that in mind, enjoy the next piece by Daniel Roth.
See you in a bit.
Eh bien, comme vous savez, j'ai été élève de Maurice Duruflé dans sa classe d'harmonie au Conservatoire supérieur de Paris et j'ai toujours beaucoup aimé cette grande personnalité musicale, ce compositeur tout à fait merveilleux. Alors j'ai été, dès le début de mes études avec lui, j'ai été très impressionné par sa personnalité et j'ai toujours beaucoup admiré jouer sa musique. Ce prélude était beaucoup joué aussi au Conservatoire de Mulhouse, donc je connaissais déjà cette œuvre. Par ailleurs, c'est l'œuvre que Duruflé préférait dans toutes ses compositions, c'est l'œuvre qu'il préférait. Il la jouait très volontiers, très souvent. C'est une œuvre très profonde. On peut lui trouver un caractère mystique. Il y a aussi un grand passage très dramatique au milieu, grand crescendo. Tout cela, ça fait sonner admirablement l'orgue. Et je dois dire que l'orgue de Saint-Sulpice rend parfaitement justice à sa musique.
Okay, now we come to the Aussie section of the program, and an organ that Greg is very well acquainted with, and I'll let him explain. So I'm going to introduce you to a lecturer in organ at the Queensland Conservatorium, Christopher Wrench, who taught Greg for 3 years, and he's told me many interesting stories. Christopher I've seen him a number of times at the organ. He's one of the most dynamic performers I've ever seen. His energy is just incredible. But I'll let Greg explain as well. So we're talking about your teacher, Chris Wrench, now.
I just caught the end of it. Yes, I was fortunate to have him as my teacher at the conservatorium. He's a very inspirational performer and teacher. In particular, he performed the complete works of J.S. Bach, and taught me for, I think, was it 4 years? Yes, because I did honors.
4 years, yeah.
So he studied also at the Queensland Conservatorium, and then went to study in Vienna at the Hochschule there, and he got a diploma there as well, and then returned and started teaching here again, and plays with the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, the Queensland Orchestra as it's known now.
No, I think actually they're back to the Queensland Symphony now.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And this organ is is the concert hall organ of Brisbane in the Queensland Performing Arts Complex, opened in 1984. I think the organ itself is 1985. It's by the German organ builder Kleis, who built fine organs around the world as well, including the Auckland Town Hall is another famous one, and many in Europe as well as I think in the United States. And it has that French amphitheater, like horseshoe-shaped console as well. It's quite a beast, actually. About 90 stops as well. So it's 7,000 pipes, I would say. Only console upstairs, this one.
Yeah.
I had the fortune of playing this organ several times as well. So it's a different experience. He's going to play, this was a lunchtime concert, I think one of the anniversaries of the building, an Australian composer called Colin Brumby, and I think it's on the tune of Moreton Bay. It's a set of variations. Captain Logan's Fancy, I think it was the piece's name. That's by Colin Brumby. So a somewhat drier acoustic to Notre Dame, and certainly for Saint-Sulpice. It's got good acoustics, this hall as well, and he also introduces the piece himself. So
I haven't included that bit.
Okay.
But so if I can provide from a local's perspective about what the tune, the piece is based on. Brisbane was a penal colony, and that's where they sent their very, very worst crims, and it was brutal. And the song goes, one Sunday morning, as I was yawning by Brisbane, one Sunday morning as I was yawning by Brisbane waters, I came to stray. I heard a convict ship. I heard the convicts their fate bewailing as on their sunny river bank they lay. I am a native of Erin's Island, banished now from my native shore. I'd have to look it up, but it's I mean those poor bastards really. Captain Logan was a right asshole. Right, here's some Colin Brumby with Chris Wrench. Unfortunately, we can't see him close up. Chris doesn't actually have a lot of videos on YouTube where you can actually see him. He's a little bit reticent, I think, to be on YouTube. But to see Chris in person, it's like, wow!
Yeah, on the next recording, however, you're going to be able to see the console a little bit closer with the Sansons, with Michael Fulcher.
Yeah, well, we might discuss that now, and then I'll just play those two tracks together. So I've chosen a recording that's not a professional recording. It's actually the Queensland Youth Orchestra, but it's an orchestra that both you and I have close ties to. I've been part of the Queensland Youth Orchestra system from the age of 14 and a half. And I played up until about the age of 19. And I've played in this orchestra, the Queensland Youth Symphony, wearing those shirts that they're wearing in the recording. And the organist is Michael Fulcher. The conductor is John Kuro, who sadly passed away last year, but he was an absolute legend in Queensland Youth Orchestra and, well, generally Queensland circles, I think. Now, I think you might recognise the chanson. I believe it was in the movie Babe. Yeah. So chanson, another French composer. We've certainly gone French today.
Yeah, and he was a famous organist himself, Sansons, and the piece he dedicated to Liszt, in fact, when he composed the Third Symphony. Now, organ symphony as such, it does not feature the organ all through.
No, it's just the last
movement. It's just
it?
segue. Oh, in the second one, the Adagio is beautiful Adagio as well, but especially the last movement, you'll hear the organ shine and make a very authoritative.
Isn't it amazing? Because you've got this, the start of the movement goes da 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 da, and it's all very quiet, and then all of a sudden you hear this, it's just amazing.
The scherzo, and then when it quietly weaves into the softer stops of the organ in the beautiful soaring adagio of the organ. But as you said, it's mostly featured in the last one movement.
And then I'll keep playing because we've got a little surprise after the chanson. You might see someone that we all know. So
who might that be?
Okay, so I'll let the music do the talking, and then I'll give you a ring back when we're done.
Enjoy.
Okay, see you in a bit. have here? Isn't that clever? Greg made that video all by himself. Yeah, so that's the end of our presentation on the pipe organ. You've been here for like 3.5 hours, which is amazing. I'll get Greg back on the line for a final goodbye and any questions. And then I'll let you know the next program. Well done, Greg. That was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Any final words? I think we're going to have to get you on for another program. I'll no. Well, I'll let you pick. You know, a few more things. Maybe we should discuss your honours thesis or something. Yeah. So, Jesse wants to know about the stops when finished for Estegon.
Well, it depends on the money available, because obviously it's still sort of trickling in. Unfortunately, that's been a bit of a drag since 1975. So, it's a pretty big sum by now, so just under 100 stops now, but the final plan is 147, and it's just subject to funding. So, unfortunately, it's not complete yet. So there are a couple of stops to be restored from lists time. They are marked with a different color tab, golden, on the console. The console has been changed since. Well, you can't see that anyway on the sample set, but so there's more funds needed to obviously complete this instrument. But I had the honor and privilege of playing, deputizing a lot of times for my teacher there, who basically dreamt up this marvelous concept of this large pipe organ, and basically just been a bit impatient with the pace of funding trickling in, but unfortunately he didn't live to see it completed, but we are hoping that one day it will be.
Cool.
And in general, I hope you enjoy this little virtual tour around the world of the pipe organ, and maybe even inspired to listen to some more organ music, or look at some of our YouTube channels. And,
yes, Greg has his own YouTube channel, Greg Hartay-Szabo. He's just launched that because Greg is newly unemployed. Bastard of a church.
Thanks, COVID-19.
Yep. Can I donate to your pipe organ project? That's from Mark. You can always, So project find Greggles a job, because well, it's been absolutely lovely chatting to you for the last 3.5 hours. It's been great. We'll have to do it again. So let's see, but next time he joins you as a guest, Kathy, please have it be all him with you. Okay, they want more of us, I think, but we'll see. We'll negotiate in between Facebook fights. We're having a good one at the moment, aren't we?
Let's not talk about politics.
No, but we weren't talking about politics. We were talking about climate change. Remember? But it's so funny, guys, because I'm very much left-wing, rusted on Labour voter, and Greg, because you were brought up in communist Hungary, you're more right-wing, and so we have the best Facebook fights, and they're so much fun. And it's more fun because the more heated we get, the politer we get. So you start getting the my dear Kathy. My dear Greg, and then it gets really serious when I start calling you by your Hungarian name, Gergely. So, should I make a final mention that you're actually a Hungarian knight twice over?
Yeah.
Chevalier Gergely Hartay-Szabo, or is it Hartay-Szabo Gergely? Anyway, we say your Hungarian name. Yeah. He's a Knight of the Order of St. Laszlo and St. John. So, and as well as pre-communist Hungary, you were actually a member of the nobility, but they sort of got rid of all that, didn't they?
Yeah.
So you don't just look noble; you are of the nobility, and I'm a mere pleb.
Well, I guess I might have a bit of blue blood in me. Yeah.
Anyway, it's been lovely talking to you. We'll negotiate another program, I think, because they all love you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here.
So say goodbye to Greg, everybody, and I'll wrap up and tell you what the next program is. So lovely talking to you, Greg.
Okay. See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining. See you, Kathy. Bye.
So I hope you've had a great time. This has been a mammoth program. I don't think the next program will be quite so long, but the next program on Tuesday morning my time, so your Monday night, is going to be my very earliest musical influences, and it's not what you think. So, and also you'll discover why I have my unique sense of humour. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting program. It's not going to be sort of strict classical music per se, but a few of the influences, including stuff that I used to watch. Well, actually, it's stuff I used to watch as a kid. A particular LP, well, actually, it was a 45 that my brother and I and my dad used to listen to, so much so that we broke the record, and that's one of the jokes on the record. Yeah, so I won't say any more than that, except to say that the program is my earliest musical influences and what formed my unique sense of humour. So, so a 45 is a record, because you know how, Mark, are you too young to know about vinyl? So you've got the LP, which is a long play record, which you play at 33 reps per minute. Oh, okay. And a 45 is played at 45 reps per minute. And I managed to find the recording on YouTube, and you're absolutely going to love it. So Greg's channel is Greg Hartay-Szabo. So the name that appears on the chat is Greg's channel. Yeah, so 33 and a third and 45. Yeah. So I'll sign off because this has been mammoth. And I've got a special guest next weekend. So your Friday, my Saturday. I've got one of my early music friends coming on via Zoom. I just saw him Wednesday night, actually. We had a rehearsal, social distancing, of course, for our Renaissance group, the Monteverdi Ensemble. So he'll come on, and he's a very interesting person. He's a law lecturer at Griffith University. But his first degree was in music, and if I thought I was a hardcore early musician, then yeah, he's even harder chord than I am. A very interesting person, very, very lovely guy. You're going to adore him as well. So I'm going to sign off because it's 1:45 in the afternoon here. Yeah, I got football to watch, man. 6 hours of football. Okay, so I'll sign off. I'm so stoked that you guys have stuck with me for the 3.5 hours. I will put the playlist in the description underneath this video so that you can watch it again if you wish. So I'm going to sign off, and you're probably going to go to bed. Lovely having you here. It was lovely having Greg here. He's a real peach. Meow. Yeah. So I shall sign off. And I shall see you Monday night, Tuesday morning for a unique program. So good afternoon, good night all. See you soon.